Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys 4 simple and delicious meal ideas. First up is an easy slow cooker chicken and gravy. For this recipe you will need 2 packages of brown gravy mix, 1 3/4 cup of water, a can of cream of chicken soup, and pepper to taste. I'm going to dump all those ingredients into my slow cooker and give it a really good mix. Once that's combined, I'm going to add 4 chicken breasts into the mixture. I flip the chicken breasts kind of around in the mixture just to get them nice and coated. Now we're going to put the lid on and cook this on high for 6 hours, or until the chicken is nice and tender. After the chicken was done cooking, I just went in with a couple of forks and started to shred them apart. It was super easy to just get in there and kind of pull that chicken apart because of how tender it had become in the slow cooker. I served that chicken on some mashed potatoes with a side salad and some carrots, and it was super delicious. I would definitely suggest giving this recipe a try. The next recipe is going to be a little bit of a clean out your fridge pasta bake. For this recipe I used a half pound of ground beef, some minced garlic, a few cherry tomatoes, some spinach, tomato sauce, mushrooms, cheese, pasta, and some spices, as well as some chopped onions. First things first, we're going to get our meat all cooked up. This recipe is super customizable, so although I'm using some ground beef, you could also use ground pork or even sausage. Next, I'm adding in about a half a cup of chopped onions. I let that cook down a bit and then added a cup of chopped white mushrooms. Give that a mix and then added in about a tablespoon of minced garlic. And followed that up with my seasonings. I did some salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, Italian seasoning, and dried parsley. And then those few cherry tomatoes I had, I just quartered them and threw them in, let them cook down a little more before adding in that can of pasta sauce and giving that a good mix. Now I'm going to add in the last of that spinach I had in my fridge, which came out to about 3 big handfuls. And of course giving that a mix and letting it cook down a little bit before adding in my cooked and drained pasta. I ended up doing about 3 cups of dried pasta, and that ended up being the perfect amount of noodle to sauce ratio for me. Now I'm going to spoon all of that into my greased 9x13 pan. And I'm going to top that off with some shredded Parmesan cheese and also some of this Tex-Mex Armstrong cheese that I had a little bit of and I just wanted to get it used. The Parmesan cheese paired really nicely with this recipe, but I also think like cheddar cheese would be really good on it too. Now I'm going to bake this in a 400 degrees Fahrenheit oven for about 20 to 30 minutes until the sides are nice and bubbling and that cheese is melted. You can also pop it under the broiler for a little bit if you'd like to. And there you have it, a delicious pasta bake that you can basically throw anything into. The next recipe I'm going to be sharing with you guys is a creamy mushroom barley soup. For this recipe, you will need 1 stalk of celery chopped, a cup of chopped carrots, 1 large onion chopped, a cup and a half barley, 16 ounces of chopped mushrooms, 1 cup of whipping cream, and then your spices to taste, and also 8 cups of chicken broth or vegetable broth, and then some minced garlic. First thing I'm going to do is add in a big tablespoon of margarine to my soup pot over medium heat. And I'm going to add in those carrots, those onions, because they were frozen. I want them to cook down and kind of get that water to evaporate off. Then I'm going to add in that celery and cook that down as well. Now I'm going to add in a big heaping tablespoon of minced garlic, give that a toss around, and then add in my sliced mushrooms. Now I'm going to add in my pot barley. If you don't want it to be as barley forward, you can do just 1 cup instead of 1.5 cups. Now I'm going to add in 8 cups of water and then add in 8 teaspoons of my chicken broth mix. Gave everything a good mix, and now I'm going to start seasoning. So I'm going to do some pepper, some onion powder, some garlic powder, some dried parsley, and also some smoked paprika. I didn't have any exact measurements for the seasonings, but I just tried the broth every once in a while to make sure that the flavors were how I wanted them. After covering my pot and letting it cook over a medium-high heat for about 15 minutes, I gave it another good stir and then cooked it over a medium-low heat with the lid on the pot slightly ajarred. Now to make this a creamy mushroom barley soup, I added in 1 cup of heavy whipping cream, although you definitely don't have to. This recipe is very delicious without it. Also, I added the cream after the soup had been cooking for about an hour. I cooked the soup for another half hour or until the barley was tender. My soup had gotten a bit too thick on me, so I added in 2 cups of extra water and adjusted my seasonings accordingly. This recipe was definitely a little more time consuming, but it was so worth it. It turned out super, super delicious. And I paired it with a grilled ham and cheese, and it was a perfect combo. Last but not least, I'm going to be showing you guys some slow cooker barbecue ribs. I'm going to start by seasoning my rack of ribs with some onion powder, some garlic powder, and some of the Southwest Mesquite seasoning from Sunset Gourmet. I just rubbed all that seasoning into my rack of ribs, and then last minute I decided to add some brown sugar as well. So I did the same thing, sprinkled some of that on top and rubbed it in. Then I'm going to flip over that rack of ribs and do the exact same thing on the other side. And now it's ready to go into the slow cooker. Into my greased slow cooker, I'm going to add that rack of ribs, try to lay it in there nicely, as nice as I can. And then I added 2 cups of water so that those ribs won't dry out. Now I'm adding some bullseye barbecue sauce on top. I did measure with my heart here, but I think I ended up doing probably about like half a cup. And then I took my pastry brush and brushed all that barbecue sauce all over the top of those ribs. Now we're going to pop our lid on and set our crock pot to 6 hours on high. My ribs ended up being done after 5 hours though. You can tell your ribs are done when you take like your tongs or your fork and the meat kind of shreds off, although you don't want it to be completely fall off the bone tender. Now I'm going to add some more barbecue sauce and give that another brush over, and your ribs are ready to be served. I paired those ribs with some mashed potatoes and green beans, and this supper was delicious. My husband and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys again next time. Bye-bye.